Good afternoon, everyone. We're just about to start because I think everyone's here. If we've got any late joiners, they're just going to join in the next few moments, I should imagine. Can I just check before we start if everyone can hear me? If you just drop it in the chat box to the right, just to check before we move on. Yeah. So Andrew's yeah. So I seem to be coming through. So the webinar today is going to be recorded, so as long as everyone's happy with that, like I say, it's mainly going to be information from myself. Really, there's going to be an opportunity at the end for some questions as well, but you can either use your microphone or the chat box for that as well. So as long as you're happy with it being recorded, the purpose for that is just so it can reach out to the people who weren't able to join us live today, really. So that I can send out the link to anyone who wants to sort of rewatch it from today, and mainly for the people who can't join today. I'm just going to quickly check with my colleague who's sort of administrating the webinar, just to make sure that he's going to just click the recording. Okay, so we'll make a start. Thanks for attending, everyone. Sorry for a few technical difficulties there, just getting started a few minutes late into it, really. Although I've used this Remo before, I've not used it. It's the first time I've used it for presenting, so uh, but it's all ready to go now. So the purpose of today is really for yourselves, as people who have been on our sort of boot camps as either graduates or current candidates, to just get a bit more information about apprenticeship opportunities, because there's often, it can often be a minefield, and there's often some sort of myths and things around it, really. So hopefully, as we go through a bit of information today, some things might become a bit clearer, and you'll get a bit more of a better understanding of apprenticeships, what opportunities are available, how we can maybe support you with that a bit more, as well as what's actually out there in a wider context as well, really. Um, so that's the quick agenda, like I've sent out in the emails before. So that's what we're running through today. So just a bit of a general overview of apprenticeships in general. Then looking at a few of the IT specific apprenticeships and what opportunities are available there. Then we've got somebody joining us from both an employer and apprentice perspective. So that will give you a really good insight, really. So not just myself and ourselves talking from blue screen, but somebody from an external company who will really give you that insight then, to show you how an apprenticeship can benefit them from both sides, really, from the employer and from the candidate apprentice side then. It is expected to last for about 45-50 minutes. So we'll try and aim sort of for that time scale, so that we sort of finish around about 10 to 3. And don't worry if you did see, I think on the initial Remo event page, it does say, I think, till 4 o'clock on one bit, but don't worry about that. Obviously, it's just going to be 45-50 minutes. Like I say, there's no expectation to turn on your webcam. Totally up to you when we get to the question and answer bit in later on. If you want to sort of put your questions in the chat box or turn your webcam or microphone on, just do it whichever way you're comfortable with, really. And like I say, there'll be an opportunity to ask those questions at the end, and then we'll just close it up. And after the event, I'll sort of follow it up with an email with any sort of relevant links a copy of the slides, a link to the recorded version if there's anything useful that you wanted to sort of watch back from it. Um, and like I say, just feel free after this, if there is anything that takes your interest, just to sort of feel free to contact me if you want to sort of set up a meeting about anything specific to your own individual needs, specific to apprenticeships, really. So, just a quick introduction to myself. I work in the bit training division of Blue Screen IT. So I oversee some of the educational programs and mainly deal with the apprenticeship side, really. And like I say, that's what this webinar today is geared towards, really. Just a bit more insight into apprenticeships for yourselves, linked in with the boot camp. Um, it's like I say, it can be a bit of a minefield, and hopefully we can go through some of these areas now. So in terms of apprenticeships in general, there's a bit of information there on screen. So essentially, if you just see an apprenticeship really as another training program, really, so everyone's got lots of different options available to them at different stages of their life. School, college, university, standalone training courses, professional development whilst you're in a job and at work. But an apprenticeship is really just another option within that. Really, it's just like I say, if you class it as a training program, but as it says there, really, it just combines the sort of work aspect of being able to actually do a job and actually earn money at the same time, whilst being able to still study. Mixing the on-the-job training with further learning as part of your apprenticeship program. Then, um, obviously, through that, you can then learn, develop, and evidence what they call the various knowledge, skills, and the behaviours, the KSBs, that are actually set down in all apprenticeship standards. So it doesn't matter what apprenticeship or what industry somebody is in, whether it's IT, digital, cyber, whether it's actually in finance, accounting, hospitality, catering, any of those industries, they all follow the same format for the apprenticeship standard with these KSBs that are linked to the person's job role. Uh, and as long as somebody is 16 years and above with sort of no upper age limit, somebody can then actually enroll and benefit from the apprenticeship. So just on that last one, really, sometimes that's often been a bit of a myth, really, where some people think apprenticeships are just for sort of younger people or people leaving school, college. And like I say, that's not the case, really. There's lots of people who can take advantage of it, and there's been lots of sort of successful case studies as well over the years where people of all ages have actually benefited from these that you wouldn't normally maybe expect to be doing an apprenticeship. I always remember one staying with me of I think he was in his 60s, really, and he was working for Tesco, and then suddenly actually did an apprenticeship for sort of 12, 15 months, and sort of thought it was really good, really. I should imagine it was in customer service or something. But um, so, like I say, we'll touch on a few more of these aspects in a moment. But like I say, the majority of the apprenticeship is made up of those knowledge, skills, and behaviours, really. And the main focus is it's sort of employer led as well, so it benefits the employer as well as yourself as the apprentice and the candidate, really. Um, so the main part of the apprenticeship is what they call the practical learning period. So the main duration is that's where you'll be doing learning on the job. You might be shadowing somebody. So each job's going to be different, really. It just depends on the employer that obviously you'd be working for, and what systems and support that they've got in place, really. So you see it from some employers that they have a lot of shadowing, they have a lot of internal on the job training. They get matched up with a mentor within the company as well. So like I say, you will find differences out there. But from the standard apprenticeship point of view, it all comes back to those KSBs that need to be met throughout the duration. There's a few other requirements as well. So you need to have sort of English and maths qualifications to do an apprenticeship, which I know nowadays, a lot of people have got. But sometimes, if you can't evidence that, or the certificates have been lost, then uh, then unfortunately, it might somebody would have to sort of do those again, unless they can be claimed through the awarding body for when you've previously done it in the past. But again, that's not a problem. That just gets incorporated within the delivery of the apprenticeship. And if somebody does need to do them again, or they haven't got them in the first place, then that becomes an additional benefit of the apprenticeship program, really, where not only are they benefiting from the job and the learning in that area of IT, but they're actually getting up to date English and maths qualifications as well. So just to make you aware on this next one, really, in terms of apprenticeship programs, there's actually lots of different levels that people can do. And again, this is looking across the industries, really, not just IT. So in general, you've got right from levels two, right, to sort of degree levels now in six and seven. Shows you there the equivalent educational levels as well, that range from sort of GCSE, A level, and obviously, like I say, sort of bachelor and master degree levels as well. So, especially at degree level, if somebody was fortunate to sort of do a job and get to work for an employer that's able to offer that, they can benefit from being able to get that development within an apprenticeship degree where, like I say, they're benefiting from the various benefits of sort of earning whilst they're learning, developing within their role, progressing further, and it's not obviously costing them any money. It's not putting them into debt with tuition fees. So, um, that seems to be a growing area at the higher level. But there are IT options available there as well. I know Plymouth University, sort of locally here in Plymouth, offer some degree level apprenticeships, and we just happen to have one within Blue Screen IT, a member of staff who's actually doing one at the moment. But most of the options within IT are sort of at level 3 and 4, really. Um, just to mention that. And with apprenticeships, again, another myth really is people think it's just for new people being employed, sort of being recruited from scratch, and that can be the case. You can advertise a completely new job for somebody to be taken on, new into the industry from scratch, and that's fine. But apprenticeship programs can be used for upskilling as well. So if somebody is already within a job role, and they're actually experienced in that job role, they can actually use it to upskill themselves, and there's lots of reasons for that, really. Sometimes somebody's within a job role and they want to progress further in it. They feel that they're already in that position, but they've just never received the formal training and qualifications that's actually needed in that job role, or demanded within industry. And sometimes you might want to consider doing an apprenticeship just to actually retrain, really, if you want to stick with that same employer, or retrain to sort of look at maybe possible career changes. I suppose what apprenticeships, like I say, cover all sorts of different industries, really. There's apprenticeships that cover finance, healthcare, hospitality, leisure. Uh, and when you look into the apprenticeships, there's a few weird and wonderful ones in there, really, as ones which are to do with the space industry, as well as uh, being qualified to work in a circus. So there's a few unusual ones there, but linking it in with IT, really, I think that the good thing about the nature of IT is whatever industry you'd want to possibly work in, obviously there's always a need for IT within any of those industries. So if you have got a particular interest in a particular area that you want to actually work in, maybe healthcare, or somebody's got a bit of experience in that area, you can essentially combine the two, really. So the main apprenticeship program would be in IT, but obviously, although you can work in the IT industry itself, you might actually be in a specific industry like finance or healthcare, within that, really, due to the nature of it. So it depends on the apprenticeship and the employer in terms of what particular program and level is chosen, and that sort of dictates then the sort of duration of the program as well, and that can range from 1 to 4 years. Bit of information there, just if you're not aware, again, with the sort of pay rates. Sometimes if people are taken on as an apprentice on contract by the employer, they then receive what's classed there as the apprentice rate. Um, and they also receive the national minimum wage at the respective age that the person is at, really. Um, if somebody's already working, then and happens to do an apprenticeship program, then they still carry on to receive their normal sort of rate of employment, whatever that is, as dictated and agreed by the employer and the employment contract, really. But if somebody is taken on from scratch as an apprentice on an apprentice contract, then they would be looking at that current rate of minimum £4.30, which from April is going up to £4.81. But beyond that, like I say, you've got the higher rates, and a lot of the time, employers will go above and beyond that at the end of the day to try and attract certain candidates and to sort of show that they're investing in the staff. So it's not always a case that you will receive, that people would receive the minimum. That's just obviously the minimum requirements by the government, really. As part of the apprenticeship, obviously you've got the 20% time that's required for further training and study. So as long as that minimum is met and people are released for that, again, it's a case of being flexible to work around the needs of the employer. So sometimes, depending on what's going on in work and projects and other work requirements, people maybe get released for a particular day a week. So it might be on a Thursday or Friday when things get a bit more quiet. Or sometimes, if there's busy periods in work, they get released in block periods of time to attend different bits of training courses and to get their study or portfolio reports written up as well. And like I say, I appreciate some of this might be a lot of information to take in, but like I say, if you do want to look at anything further, just feel free to either sort of refer to the links when I send them out, or just contact me if you want to go into it in a bit further beyond this webinar today. There's a few benefits there, just in general. Some of them you might already be aware of. Uh, so benefits of an apprenticeship really from the apprentice point of view. So just being able to gain and develop those skills, knowledge, behaviours for that specific job role, being able to learn at your own pace, being able to sort of benefit from being supported by obviously the workplace mentor or whoever's in place from the employer, as well as the training provider point of view, giving you the opportunity for professional recognition as well. Sometimes where if somebody has already been in that role but they're put onto an apprenticeship program, they can get that professional recognition by achieving it. And also some apprenticeship programs allow you to, for example, get professional recognition through an awarding body like BCS, so that then you've got an additional outcome from it then, and you can be added to their membership and their professional uh, membership list for being a recognised IT support technician. Also gives you recognised industry, recognised qualifications, obviously paid employment, uh, lots of ways to gain and development yourself through that real work environment. So you getting all those practical work situations hands on through the job that you'll be doing from the employer. Your competence is confirmed throughout the duration of the program, and obviously on achievement at the end. And throughout that, you usually build up a portfolio of examples of your work and written reports to sort of showcase your work ready for that end assessment stage as well. Also provides access to additional options for further progression. So after your apprenticeship program, you might want to go on to maybe a higher level. You might want to sort of discuss your feedback with the employer. They might maybe promote people in certain situations as well. So there's all sorts of options from a sort of promotion and progression point of view beyond the apprenticeship as well, really, depending on what's available um, with the employer and as a further option, really. Um, And obviously, by doing an apprenticeship program, it's just going to further enhance somebody's prospects in terms of their career as well, really. Um, I have sent out some links previously with some ways of how people can find an apprenticeship, but uh, just on screen now is just an example of the government site where you can go to and obviously search for any live apprenticeships, really, and that's quite handy because it shows you everything that's live. You can filter it down to different locations, different levels, different industries. You can put keywords in so that you can really filter it down to what you're looking for, really. So if you wanted something to do with IT support or cybersecurity, you can put those keywords in there. Obviously, just a note for anything that's anything like a search engine like that is just it's worth trying different combinations of keywords if you are looking on that. So, if you are looking for something that's specific like cyber security, maybe just put in online security and just put in security or IT security as well, just to vary it, just so that you can make sure for definite that you are finding all the opportunities that might be on there then. Um, it's also worth looking directly at employer sites where apprenticeship opportunities might be advertised as well. And obviously, for ourselves on the Blue Screen website, we're going to be advertising uh, vacancies on there as well shortly as well. So it's worth checking all those different avenues. Just a quick mention about how a program tends to sort of progress on the apprenticeship. So you've got what they call the on program or the sort of practical learning period. So that's the main duration of the program. So it could be something like 15, 18 months, where you're just building up your portfolio, you're learning on the job, you're really developing your skills, knowledge, uh, and sort of behaviours as they're called. And then once all that is complete, you then progress to the gateway stage, which is where everything's confirmed between the training provider and the employer to say, yeah, you've ticked all requirements, and you can go to that final EPA stage, which is classed as the endpoint assessment, where an independent assessor from the awarding body, like BCS or sitting guilds, then just makes contact with to run through a few assessment methods just to finalise things. And then, as long as everything goes successfully, that's where your program finishes and your grade is awarded. Some apprenticeship standards are just sort of pass and fail, and some are actually graded in the sense of sort of pass, merit, distinction as well. Then, so the more that you put into the portfolio work, the more examples you can show, the higher the grade is potentially going to be. Then, in terms of the evidence that you can present to them. Just a few quick bits of information about that EPA stage I mentioned, endpoint assessment, and those associated assessment methods. They tend to be for the apprenticeships in the IT industry that we deal with. They tend to be the ones that are on screen at the moment. So during apprenticeship, you would build up your summative portfolio with those examples of your work and screenshots and maybe video casts of things that you're doing and projects that you're working on. Uh, there's usually a synoptic project element, which is where you generate a project report that covers your evidence of doing that project. And then that's followed up with some questioning from the independent assessor. There's an external employer reference or a testimonial that's often included as well. So the employer or the line manager can give their sort of reference on how you've performed in terms of those key knowledge, skills, and behaviours. There's usually a separate short interview, professional discussion with that independent assessor as well, which goes into more detail about what you've been doing in the duration of your apprenticeship, what projects you've been involved in, what activities, looking at your progression and how you can sort of take that further. And then from that, they're able to form that grading of the pass, merit, distinction if that's applicable for that particular standard. Then. In terms of looking at the digital IT and cybersecurity standards within the industry, that's the sort of areas that are available across the board. So you're looking at programs that cover data analyst type roles, cybersecurity at different levels. Uh, very popular options within the IT sort of hardware, network, cloud, infrastructure sort of areas to support all aspects of that. Software development, digital marketing, and sort of IT sales, where somebody would be able to combine sort of IT support with sort of IT sales and sort of going out to maybe sell some sort of piece of sort of technical software uh, as an example. And sort of taking that further in terms of ourselves at Blue Screen, in terms of sort of bit training, these are the apprenticeships that we're able to offer at the moment, and then later down the line we might be able to expand and offer a few other different ones. And but at the moment, those are the ones we're offering at the moment. So as and when employers come forward, uh, those roles, we can then we can link it into those programs. So you've got the very popular information communications technician, which is level 3. That used to be called the infrastructure technician. So that's always one of the popular IT ones. But since it's been revised since last year, it's now got 3 different pathways available within that. So the reason why some of these were revised last year, it was just to bring them up to date, really, in terms of the industry, the technology, and to sort of make it more relevant for employers. Um, and it just makes it a bit more flexible, really, so somebody can really, be put on a pathway for their specific role. So as you can see there, you've got the support technician, network technician, and digital communications technician. So if somebody's, more so working on networks or more working on the telecommunication side, then they can really make it relevant for them. Got the network engineer level 4. So again, that can just be done as a standalone option, or it could be done as a progression route from the level 3 network technician that I've just mentioned there. You've got the 2 cyber security apprenticeship standards. So you've got the level 3 technician and then the level 4 technologist. So they're really good if you want to obviously focus and specialize in those sort of cyber security areas there. And for the level 4, again, you've got those pathways available there. So you've got the cybersecurity engineer, the risk analysis analyst, and the defend and respond pathway. Again, with those, they're all standalone. So somebody could do the level 3, and then if the apprentice and the employer wanted them to progress further, then they could consider the level 4 as an option, or somebody could just jump onto level 4 if that was felt more relevant for their needs at the right level for them. And finally, just for digital marketer there at level 3. Out of all of those on screen, digital marketer is the only one that's yet to be revised by uh, by the Institute of Apprenticeships. So that should be happening anytime now in the next couple of months. So the new version will become available of that then, which will be good. Um, so for the moment, that's just on the current version, but that would be updated as well, just to tweak it to bring it up to standard as well. Just to quickly mention, really, the unique difference that makes apprenticeships a bit different for any people who are transitioning to and from the boot camps. So obviously, as you're aware, this webinar today is really geared towards the boot camp candidates which are attending. So the difference that an apprenticeship would make there would be because the qualification content that would be incorporated in the apprenticeship you've already actually covered in the boot camp. It essentially gives you the ability to fast track and accelerate the apprenticeship program. So for yourselves as the candidate and for the employer, I suppose the benefit would be you'd be able to complete it in a shorter duration of time. And obviously, that becomes a bit of a benefit to the employer, maybe if they want somebody to be up and running, in a quicker time period. Um, and like I say, it allows you to complete the apprenticeship in a lot shorter time, really. As long as it's beyond, all apprenticeships have to have a minimum of 12 months. Uh, so as long as it's above that requirement, but it could really reduce it down. So for example, if you've got, a 24-month apprenticeship program or an 18-month apprenticeship program, because you've already done those qualifications and covered those topic areas in the boot camps, it would reduce it down drastically. Really, obviously, it would have to be looked at on an individual basis of somebody starting an apprenticeship, but it would reduce it down by quite a few months. Really, whether it's sort of 3, 4, 5, 6, several months, I should imagine, once it's worked out. But like I say, really, the benefit there is anyone coming from the boot camps, and if you were to go into an apprenticeship, due to the nature of what you've covered, like I say, it's just giving you that accelerated fast track option, really. So like I say, just take that into consideration, really. So if you do initially see an apprenticeship advertised as obviously the standard, 18 months or 24 months, just bear in mind that that could be reduced because of your circumstances of the boot camps. So just moving on to the next part, we're fortunate to have a couple of guest speakers with us today, who I'm just going to hand over to in a minute. So they're from a software artificial intelligence company in Truro in Cornwall. We've got Chris Weevil, who's the co-founder and COO of that company, Hertzian. And we've got his colleague who's a software developer there as well, hopefully on the call today, Christian. So hopefully I can see Chris is on here, so hopefully if I could just hand over to him, he's going to be able to sort of just go into a bit of detail about how apprenticeships have helped him from the employer point of view, and how it's benefited his business, really.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me, David.
Yeah, I can hear you, and hopefully everyone else can. So yeah, so you're live for us.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for having us on, David. Great to talk about apprenticeships generally and share some kind of insights into the process for apprenticeships it's been for us, but also Christian here with me today can share some of his experiences with being an apprentice at the beginning of Hertzian, and then also progressing on from his apprenticeship to being a full member of staff, and then also now Christian progressing on to kind of taking on more responsibilities and going to more of that senior role. I'll talk a bit about just kind of from an employer's perspective on why we hire apprenticeships and kind of what we expect out of apprenticeships. And then Christian can just talk a bit about his experiences with the apprenticeship and joining Hertzian. The company's been around 8 years now. And like David said in his introduction, we focus on developing AI solutions. So there's a lot of programming, a lot of software involved. And because the technology we're using is industry leading, a lot of the development and a lot of the work that we do is in innovation and research and development. So one of the good things actually with hiring apprentices is, particularly if they're young, you can bring in a fresh member of staff who's usually very eager, very excited to kind of join the world of work, join a company doing software development in this case. There's a big appetite there to kind of learn and grow. And that kind of seed that we get from apprenticeships, where the member of staff is very eager to kind of grow and continue to learn and develop their skills, is really useful in our because of the kind of work that we're developing on. So we see apprenticeships as enormously beneficial to the company. And one of the other things with being in Cornwall is actually talent and software developers in Cornwall are actually quite tricky to obtain. There's a lot of web developers around in the area, but not so many kind of software engineers, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the kind of skills that we're looking for at Hertzian. So bringing in apprenticeships and apprentices, training them in the skills that we require within the business, and then having those apprentices like Christian progress on to full-time roles and then take on more responsibility and grow with the business. When we bring on more future apprentices and even other employees, people like Christian and others can teach and train and support other apprentices joining on after him. So we've got this really good ecosystem where we're kind of evergreening talent and learning through our apprentices and through the programs that we engage with. And it's a really good way to kind of just resolve some of those tricky issues with availability of skills and candidates in Cornwall. But also internally, it's really good with team cohesion and learning, because all the apprentices and all the members of staff can collaborate and share experiences. And any new apprentices that we bring into the company, obviously Christian can share his experiences and talk about his journey with them, so they feel more comfortable in the business. And with that, I'll pass over to Christian, and Christian can, I guess, maybe start off with the interview process and how the interview was for you when we first started.
Yeah, so when I first went to my interview, I'd never really had a job in any sort of industry. I'd washed cars for a few weekends, nothing really proper in industry, but the interview was really nerve-wracking. However, was great. Getting onto the apprenticeship was something which did take a while to transition into. However, once on there, I was able to work within industry and actually get a actual exact view on what it's like to actually work in industry and get.
It was kind of, I think, because we were working on AI, it was probably something you weren't expecting when you applied for kind of a software developer apprenticeship. Having like an AI company in Cornwall, I think you were quite surprised to see kind of that available, weren't you?
Yeah, seeing that, as you said, you normally only really see like web development in Cornwall, and just mainly the other ones I went to for the apprenticeships were web development. So seeing an AI software company was a bit like, wow.
It's not what you expected at all, really, was it?
No, not at all, no.
What were some of like the negatives that came with kind of starting their
As I
apprenticeship?
mentioned a minute ago, the transition period was big difficulty when starting the apprenticeship. And also the academia side wasn't always great, having to have this great work period where you're proper working and doing like actual important work, and then going back to college and doing like just standard college assignments and stuff like that, and listening to lectures was another negative to say.
Yeah, because we had you working on kind of live products. I guess that's one of the other things that was maybe different from how other companies take on their apprenticeships, because obviously what I was saying about that ecosystem, the apprentices like Christian, you were working on kind of live products, weren't you? And you weren't just testing and making tea. You were actually working on things that were quite important,
doing things that actually mattered. Yeah,
and I guess that was obviously quite stressful as well for you at the beginning as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that was one of the things that only really near the end I started to be able to manage properly. But actually having that period of being an apprentice instead of just jumping in as a job gave me that time to be able to prepare and actually be able to experience it as something before an actual job, as well as learning.
And I guess you're pretty confident when you finish your apprenticeship that you were going to progress on to like a role because of all the integration, all the learning and stuff.
Yeah, I felt like I'd already been working there for a good 2 years as an apprentice, and I could see myself working forward because I already knew what the job would be like.
Yeah, I guess that's like one of the really good things, is that you know what the job's going to be like in the company. So when you're progressing on, you kind of know you're still with the same company. Everything's going to effectively be the same.
Yeah, you don't have that big worry of like, oh, what's it going to be like after education, after I've got my qualification? What's it going to be like actually working?
Yeah,
because you obviously already know it. You've been doing it for your entire training.
I guess one of the things that people in the webinar might be wondering is why you picked an apprenticeship over uni. Perhaps it's maybe touching on that.
I think going to uni would be a big like leap. I guess doing an apprenticeship is a big leap, but like you get a lot more from an apprentice than you would at a uni. Yes, you get a full degree and you get, I've got to look at this, I've been to uni, I've done that, I've done this big change. You've got a lot of academia, but you haven't got any sort of like soft skills. You haven't got the ability to actually use the knowledge that you have gained in your like education. You actually have business and industry knowledge.
Yeah, you're applying what you know, right?
Yeah.
I can, and also I guess like collaborating with colleagues and being in industry kind of gives you all of those insights that perhaps in software development it's probably more prevalent because the industry is changing so much, and what you're learning at university and what you're learning in academia can be outdated within 12 months, whereas when you're in industry you're continuously learning and developing with what's being used. So
yeah, you're always as up to date. As academia, as you said, is usually quite far behind.
Yeah. What are the kind of big positive and negatives can you remember from the apprenticeship?
Big one I think would be soft skills, learning how to actually communicate with a team, work with colleagues, and actually more like the project management side of being a software developer. Massive like improvements from.
And you're actually wanting to progress that now, aren't you? Because you're aiming towards a team leadership role, which actually is not. It's probably less software development and more people management, project management stuff.
Yeah, and having that, like getting a view on that while I was trained, like essentially in education, was great because I got that step in the door beforehand on that stuff, which you don't usually get. You get a bit of like project management stuff at uni, but nowhere near as much as it will be actually working inside of a company.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. I don't know, David, if anyone has any questions that they want to ask us that we're happy to kind of touch on. If anyone in the webinar has any questions for us, specifically around any of either the employee perspective or the apprentice perspective.
Yeah, I'll just ask anyone now if just whilst we've got Chris and Christian here, if, from that perspective, has anyone got any questions? If you want to just put your microphone on or just drop it into the chat box. And just whilst waiting for any questions to come through, like you both said, really, I think as long as you've got a supportive employer, which it sounds like you are there, it makes sense really. Once you're taking on any new apprentices, you've got like you say that ecosystem in place where you can support anyone else coming on board internally, with the people who have already experienced it really, which I've seen elsewhere. So instead of people going into the unknown, at least then they've got somebody who can talk firsthand to say, look, I've been through this process. This is, and even share those examples and be an extra bit of support and even a bit of a mentor to them as well.
Yeah, I think those types of things are hugely important. And at the beginning, obviously, when we first started to hire apprentices, I was kind of the direct line manager and mentor for all the apprentices. But as that grows and progresses, obviously, we've got more apprentices now, which can then share their journey with previous apprentices. And I know at the beginning we spoke a lot, didn't we, when you were on an apprenticeship, about confidence and building that up for your work, because you are an industry. You do worry about kind of the output and what work you're doing and how you're perceived by colleagues and stuff, because if you are going to utilize their apprentices to the fullest, you do need to really engage with them. You do need to give them the opportunity. And one of the criticisms I have of seeing other employers engaging with apprenticeship programs is they don't look at an apprentice as an employee who can stay on, who can become X, Y, or Z. Is very much kind of cheap labor, fill small gaps. And really, I don't think that's the purpose and point of hiring young apprentices in particular. Really, you should be looking at them as an opportunity to create the perfect employee, if you will, and then have that person then share those skills and those experiences with future apprentices.
Yeah, I completely agree with your point there, because I've seen it myself where you've got apprentices that are taken on as like you say, that sort of option of almost cheap labour, and then they're not really given any exciting jobs or work, and it becomes a bit boring for them really, and it almost puts a bad impression on the apprenticeship as well, really, doesn't it? And just for that nature. But I think where it's worked really well is those employers who fully kind of embrace it, like you say, engage with the apprentice and give them those opportunities to sort of say, look, whilst you're with us, you can get all this experience. We're going to get you involved in various projects, and they'll have that kind of responsibility and to make it their own, really. And I like the point earlier as well that Christian was saying, how part of it really is because of you're gaining from the hands-on experience and obviously the job itself and other things. But it for anyone who's not not been in any sort of training or academic things for a while, you've almost got to get your head around that again, really, and you get into that mindset of having to sort of get down and do build up a portfolio and do bits of work sometimes as part of it, really. But again, the training provider is like ourselves is there to kind of support the candidate with that, really, in terms of study skills and best practice to work around that. And again, although somebody might be doing the same apprenticeship standard, it does vary between different training providers. So, you might have a local college, or you might have a training provider, and although you're covering the same apprenticeship program, if you go, for example, to the college, they might not be as flexible because they run their sort of intake on maybe a Thursday and a Friday, and you've got to keep on top of that. Whereas sometimes that doesn't work around the sort of needs of the employer and their flexibilities. If you've got projects, which I should imagine, for yourself, you've got different projects demands coming up. And clients that you're working with from a software point of view, and you've got to be a bit flexible. So that's why sometimes it's good to kind of shop around really and see, when an apprenticeship is being considered, see how it's being delivered by those colleges and the difference between the training providers and any flexibilities with that really. Uh, we've got a question so far from James. He's asking if Hertzian offers remote opportunities, being based in Taunton.
So we do offer remote working opportunities. So for full-time employment, we offer that for any of the kind of roles applicable that we put on the advertisements. For apprenticeships, it's more of a discussion. It depends very much on the age of the apprentice, their previous work experience. Something that we're wary of is hiring a fully remote apprentice who has this as their first job, because we know from experience when you've got a young new apprentice and it's their first kind of job, they require a lot more hands-on support, and you need to do that in person really. But in terms of normal roles, yes, we do offer fully remote apprentices. We do consider it, but it depends on the detail.
Yeah, and like you say, again, I agree with your point there, and I think that's been demonstrated as well through the period of the pandemic as well, not just with apprenticeships, but obviously, if somebody is kind of new to any job, it's not ideal doing the job remote because they need that natural mentoring or shadowing in a kind of in an office environment, really, in an ideal world. But for any further positions, then it's a bit more flexible. Then Ethan's got a question. In terms of, would you rather hire a younger apprentice versus someone who is maybe 25 plus, or would they have, or if they have a passion and knowledge for the role, does age not matter as much?
Well, so obviously, when it comes to employment law, you have to be very careful about discriminating against recruitment based on age. But putting that to one side and taking kind of the heart of the question, it doesn't matter too much. Obviously, depending on kind of the position and the role and where your company is and what your company culture is, you want to make sure that the criteria of the people that you're hiring match the requirements that you're looking for. Hiring someone who's kind of 25 plus as opposed to somebody who's maybe 18, 19, there are going to be different cultural impacts to the business when recruiting those two different age groups. I think it depends on the company's needs and wants. We would hire either or. If I've had conversations in the past where we've had surgeons and doctors, believe it or not, wanting to, well, maybe not believe it because of the situation we're in, but wanting to change discipline completely and actually looking at technology and programming and wanting to explore other opportunities potentially for apprenticeships. And these are people who, are solicitors and work in medicine and completely different disciplines wanting to convert. So I think we're open to all opportunities. It just kind of depends on what the company's needs are, really. But of course, you do have to be careful when you're looking at recruiting and making decisions on recruitment purely on age.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, I think it just purely depends on the employer, really, in terms of what they're sort of wanting, and then obviously tying it into an apprenticeship. But I think for myself, I've often seen all sorts of different scenarios. So it's never a barrier really in terms of age. Some people, like you say, that they've actually got they're qualified doctors. Not medical doctors, but doctors in other industries, and they've got degrees and they're still enrolled on apprenticeships because they want to maybe benefit from that career change, or they've been in a certain job and just not benefited from any formal training before.
Yeah,
And all sorts of age categories, really, from sort of fresh young people with all those fresh ideas who are sort of starting completely in industry, as well as people who again are having a career change in their 40s, 50s. So it's all fine, really, isn't it?
yeah. I think passion and knowledge are really important criteria when recruiting. To give a bit of an insight into our recruitment process, actually, is that we look at two things, and they're broken down into two behaviors and technicals. The technicals are kind of the qualifications, the academics of, do they know the role, do they have experience in the role. If we're hiring for a software developer, the technicals would be, do they have a portfolio, can they demonstrate they know programming. The behaviors are kind of more of the personality traits, the soft skills. Passion and knowledge and wanting to learn is vitally important for us, and it can actually top trump technicals. If somebody comes into the business applying for a job, has no experience, no portfolio, no qualifications, but they're really eager, they're confident, they're wanting to learn, they're able to work with the team, they don't have a big ego, then we will consider hiring them just on that alone, because it's easier to teach technicals than it is to unteach bad behaviors. And actually, I hope Christian doesn't mind sharing this, but in his CV, when he applied, he actually didn't put anything in there about programming, believe it or not. And it was based on other elements of his CV that Christian actually got the interview, and it was good. He did interview because obviously he got the job, and actually Christian didn't just get the job, but we created another apprenticeship position just for Christian. Christian had lots of programming experience in his belt, but he just didn't really put that in his CV. So if we hadn't given the opportunity for Christian to interview based on his behaviours, it would have been bad for both him and us, because we would have missed out on him joining us as a good employee. So passion and knowledge, no matter the age and where they're found, is really important.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's the only questions that have come forward for now. But look, on the next part, we were just going to sort of finish up with any sort of questions. So I don't know whether yourself, Chris, and Christian just want to hang around just for that final